Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from wherever you're joining in the world. And welcome to our next webinar of the Data Science Institute. And today we're going to cover a program that, in my opinion, is very interested, where we're going to look at some insights for career growth and change. And especially we'll look at how newer technologies and newer situations are changing our jobs and work every single day, and what you can do in order to prepare for this. So before we get started, just one quick slide around the logistics. Note that this webinar is being recorded and that screenshots might be taken during the entire webinar. So if you choose to turn on your camera, it might be the case that your face will be in the recording of the video. So note that if you don't want that, we recommend you to keep your cameras off. The second key part is that these webinars are a great way to spark some discussion and some interesting discussions. So if you have any questions, please use the Q&A feature that is available in Teams for this session, so that we can moderate the questions all the way towards the end. And then last but not least, note that we will make the entire presentation available for everyone. So there's no need to make screenshots while I'm progressing. I will send you an entire copy of the entire deck. So you will get all the materials that are going to be part of today. Good, so that's a quick part on the logistics. Now, let's get started with a very quick introduction from my side. My name is Jan-Willem Middelburg, and for those of you who have been joining these sessions before, most of you will know that I'm the president of the Data Science Institute. I do a lot of teaching, a lot of webinars and talks like today. And if I'm not online, then my big passion is writing. So I've written quite a number of books over the years, especially the Enterprise Big Data Framework, which is one of the fundamental methodologies upon which the Data Science Institute has been founded. So that's a little bit about me. At the end of this presentation, I'll share my contact details. So in case you want to stay in touch, please connect with me on LinkedIn, or you can always send me an email. Then let's first review a brief agenda of what we are going to talk about today. So I'm going to show you some of the impact of new technology, and not surprisingly, that is primarily going to cover artificial intelligence. And I'm going to show you some of the research around this, and specifically how this is being adopted, the rate with which this is going, and how it changes the way organizations and individuals operate on a day-to-day basis. Now, I think I'm not going to explain something technically new. I think most of you who are joining today will know about these new technologies. This has been around for the last 2-3 years. You basically cannot open any discussion or any overview without an overview of this. But the interesting part with this new technology is mostly around how are you going to apply it. So in the second part of this section, I will show you a framework that I like to discuss around how you can make use of this newer technology. And I always like to call this adopt, adapt, and change. And it's basically more of a mind shift change and forcing yourself to do things differently than that it's all about the new technology. I'm quite sure many of you, or almost everyone who's joining today, has used AI tools, large language models, image generators, or even video creation tools by now. But it's more about how you can now start embedding this by ensuring that it becomes something that is sustainable on a longer term perspective. So that's the second part. And then I'm going to jump into what does that mean from a career perspective. And some of the research I will show you today is going to show you very clearly around what is the impact today, but also where is it going to be expected to grow over time. And I'll end today's session with getting started. As you know, with the Data Science Institute, we're all very keen and big promoters of learning, accreditation, certifications, and I'll also show you how you can take some of the first steps yourself in order to address that part. So that's the agenda that we will be covering today. And then before I'm going to dive into my first main part, note that this webinar is provided to you by the Data Science Institute, which is the independent organization for the advancement of data best practices. And the mission of the Data Science Institute is to provide education, certification, and knowledge to enable organizations, governments, and individuals to use data to make better decisions on a day-to-day basis. So if you've never been to the DASCIN website, I encourage you to check it out. It's at dascin.org, and this is where you will be able to find some information around this. Good, so let's get started with the subject at hand. And I generally like to start with showcasing some graphs and research to make you familiar about the impact of new technology and the way that it is changing lives every single day. Because I think most of us will be aware that it is happening. It's just that the speed with which these newer developments are accelerating is actually increasing very, very rapidly. And on this first overview, I'm showcasing two main graphs. One is coming from Google research, and the other is coming from the International Energy Organization. And what you can see on the left-hand side is research from Google that showcases the growth and use of AI in the past 12 months compared to the 3 previous years. And it is split per region, so that you get a better understanding around which areas are most impacted by this. But I also would like to draw your focus towards the increasing growth percentages. And the figures from last year are not out yet, but I'm 100% sure that it will keep on growing with these double-digit rates. If there's one fundamental technology that's changing everything in the world around it, it's AI. And later today, I'm going to show you some key use cases and some key ways in which you can integrate that into your everyday work as well. It also means that AI comes with a lot of new challenges. If you're reading the news, energy dependency, the need for massive growth of data centers, hyperscalers as we call them, is increasing the strain on electricity. It's increasing the strain on network. And as I will showcase a little bit later, AI solutions are built on these massive data sets. So it requires a tremendous amount of processing and compute power, as well as a tremendous amount of electricity and energy in order to do this. And in the last few years, you can see that the energy consumption that has been coming from data centers and IT solutions is increasingly growing compared to almost any other industry. And the whole reason behind this is obviously AI. So I'd like to start with that. And the main conclusion is that AI as a technology and as a enabler of any kind of business, it is growing double digits every year, and it's not going to stop anytime soon. So whereas this slide might have been something that would be, I would say, eye-opening a few years ago, I'm comfortable saying today that this is hardly a surprise anymore. Now, let's dive into what this actually means from a career and from a job perspective, because that's the key focus of today's session. And I'd like to start there with showcasing you some research that was actually published only 2 weeks ago. It was quite an interesting report that was published by Anthropic, the company behind the cloud large language model. And it did quite a detailed research with over 20 researchers participated in this, that is going to look at what is the impact per job scope and what is the observed usage by occupational category. And what they did, the link to the entire report is provided in the slides. So I'm going to send that to you afterwards, or if you do a quick Google search, you'll find it yourself. But what they did is look at, where is AI playing an impact today, but also where does one of the leading companies, which Anthropic is, where do they foresee impacts accelerating, and where do they think AI has the potential to affect jobs, occupations on a day-to-day basis? So what you see on this slide in red is where AI is now already taking over job skills and necessary that used to be done by people. But the interesting part, and that is really what caught my eye, is that it also showcases you how this company envisions and foresees that AI is going to impact other job scopes and how it's going to grow within the next few years. So it's the difference between observed AI coverage and what they call theoretical AI coverage. And there's too many things that I'd like you to take away from this. Is first of all, a note that the speed with which this is going has been going very rapidly. And we already see that very many jobs are affected or can be executed faster or more efficiently with the use of AI. I know that on this webinar today, a lot of people are in an IT background or with a coding background, because that's our typical audience within the Data Science Institute. And it's no surprise anymore that today you can generate code in almost any language with the click of a few buttons. And it's not just code, it's actually quite good code. And it works, and it is well formatted, properly documented, well commented. So it really allows a developer to be, well, not just say 5 or 10 times more productive, but probably 100 times more faster compared to writing all of that code manually. And that's just an example from the computer space. So that's also why on this slide you will see that the arrow specifically is in that part very fast. And the same is obviously true where we see the impact today is on more office-style jobs, processing documents, moving data from one system towards another, everything that is about data transfer and administrative tasks. But the second part that I want you to really take away from this is that what is envisioned to be impacted is significantly larger, because you can see the scale. And the cycle in blue is not just a little bit larger. They are expecting that the impact will be 3-4 times higher within the next few years. So the coverage and the impact of AI on those particular job groups will start to accelerate. Now, why I'm showing you this, it's not to scare anyone or to say, AI is going to eat up all of our jobs. It does mean, however, that there's going to be a need for transformation. And that's what I'm hoping to accomplish with this session today, is make you realize that this will be coming and that it is better to start making preparations for this right away, right now, today, tomorrow, after you've finished with today's session. Now, to dive one step deeper, not just to kind of give you the overview, is in the same research report, and again, the link is at the bottom, you will see which occupations and specific job roles are going to be most exposed to these changes. So they made a bit of a ranking with all of the different areas that are going to be mostly impacted by. They call it exposed by lack of a better word. But you see that all the way at the top is computer programmers, the example I just mentioned, but also many jobs that are in the customer service or in the IT support region. Now, I started my career a long time ago within the whole IT support domain, so service desks, agents. So a lot of these process-oriented jobs in which you're basically doing case-based work, that is an area that is very likely, very quickly going to be impacted through these new AI technologies. And whether that is through our RPA robots or agentic agents, as they call it these days, that's going to be something that can be automated very, very fast. And the technology for that is there already. And some of the other jobs, and again, I'm not going to list all of them out, but job roles that are going to be very highly impacted are ones in which you do case-based work, which is repetitive, but also in which you're using structured formatting, like computer code, documentation, Excel sheets, because that is really a prime target for any form of AI model. Now, again, it's a very interesting article. Again, I strongly encourage you to read this in full if you have. It's around, probably 30-minute read. This is, I think, research that everyone who's in this domain should know something about. And I strongly recommend you to dive a little bit deeper into this. Now, why is this important, and why am I starting the session about this with these few research studies? The first thing that I really would like you to realize is that the AI tools that are available right now are already changing a lot of the things that we do on a daily basis, whether it's producing slides, whether it is making calculations, whether it's writing computer code, whether it's processing documentation. AI is there already to fundamentally help with these kinds of exercises. And I'm quite sure that most of you who are watching today are using this in order to speed up their work, in order to write good paragraphs or sentences or reformat specific documents. So in that sense, there's nothing new. But the thing that I would like you to realize after today's session is that we are only at a very early stage of this adoption. And it is likely, if you base it on the reports that I just showed you, that many, if not most, jobs are going to be exposed to AI. Meaning that the way that you perform that job or that work on a daily basis is going to fundamentally change. I've used the word exposed here because that's also the word that they are using in that research study that I just showed you. I think it's a bit of a flawed term because exposure generally means it's something negative, but you also could really look at this from an opportunity perspective. But what I do want you to do then as a follow-up is start thinking about what does that mean for me? What does it mean for my job, my career, and the way that I execute that job? Because if you are in that exposed area, it's probably better to start making preparations than finding out one day that the way that you've been doing things is now completely replaced by some kind of agentic AI robot. So based on this first section, there's a choice you make. The thing that is most unexposed to AI is still doing something manual. So contracting jobs, jobs in construction, or anything like hairdressers, people who work with their hands are the least exposed to AI solutions. However, there's also high question marks around this. So on this key slide, you see how manual bricklayers is working. But now with AI, there have been machines, and again, I've listed the source below, where AI agents and robots have the opportunity to stack bricks with millimeters accuracy. I'm not saying it's done better than what a human would do, but at least you can assure that every brick is stacked to the horizon exactly. And these robots obviously also don't need breaks or vacation or can work all the way through the night. So even in areas where we always feel that AI is going to have the least impact, you see that these newer technologies are fundamentally changing the way that it actually works on a day-to-day basis. Another great example, one of my personal favorites, is how about the creative world? How about arts? How about the world where people still need imagination and creativity to perform work? And on the left-hand side, one of my favorite painters is Bob Ross, not just because of his paintings, but the personality behind it. For those of you who have ever seen his videos, and that in just 1 or 2 hours created a beautiful painting from a very creative point of view. But even for these kinds of solutions, so for the highly creative kind of work, there is now evidence and experiments going on that actually show that this is done significantly different. And this is on this slide is one of my other favorite examples, is a humanoid robot, and they specifically called her Ada, as in AIDA, that is now making creative paintings and is actually selling those paintings for record numbers, because it is really kind of like an out-of-the-box kind of configuration. So she's very famous for making portraits. You can see some of the examples here on the screen that people really do seem to appreciate because it's a unique way of making these kinds of paintings. But take into account that, again, this is done completely by an AI-driven model. So what I wanted to show you, and obviously these are fun examples, and I always try to keep the webinars also a bit light, but even in jobs that are supposedly not impacted or affected, as we've seen earlier, AI is coming to transform it and to force you to think about it in a particularly different way. So I just wanted to start with that to help you understand this part and showcase specifically on where do we foresee that this is going towards the future. Now, to dive a little bit deeper into this, and obviously with these webinars, I always try to also make sure that you get some key takeaways, is that it's important to know where we are within the AI capability journey. And this is, I promise, is the only part of theory that I'll cover for today. But if you look at the science and the knowledge around artificial intelligence and the way that's developing, you could say that AI comes into 3 stages, which is what we call the narrow AI, which is task focused, and this is the situation we're in today. Then we have what we refer to as AGI, which is general artificial intelligence, which is able to think and think like a human. And then the final state is what we refer to as super intelligence, which would be thinking that is more complex than what humans can do. It's still debatable at this moment whether that is a state that a robot or a computer can actually achieve. But the reason I'm showing you this is that we are only right now just in this narrow AI state where AI agents are developed and trained to do specific tasks, which is still very much rule-based, although it is getting better and better at this, but still input-output kind of theoretical models. And the reason I say models is that the capabilities of these agents are constrained by the AI model that is driving it. In other words, it means that in case you would like to add new features or capabilities or knowledge, it means that you would need to retrain the model entirely from scratch. So it actually requires a bit of work to actually do this. Now, the stage that we are slowly moving into is general AI, or artificial general intelligence, which is the next frontier. Some people say that we are close to arriving at that. Some people kind of still dispute that. But this would be AI systems that actually learn from itself. And a few weeks ago, there was a very famous experiment where Anthropic released a new model that was able to break out of its own security confinements. And some people argue that we've now arrived at this general AI state, which means that the AI model is able to do reasoning, problem solving, and adaptation towards specific situations that it never encountered before. So, meaning that there's no need anymore to retrain the model from scratch. And it means that the agent has the ability to evolve and improve itself over time, which is a fundamentally different property from what we've just seen with the narrow AI part. So at this moment, everyone or the research still indicates that we are at this from a theoretical perspective. But given the development that we have seen in the last few weeks, some people are now making the claim that we have actually arrived at this next frontier in terms of artificial intelligence. Now, final stage of this is what we refer to as superintelligence. We're still luckily a long way from that. But this really means that the model itself would be able to reason beyond what a human person can do. And one of the great examples that I've seen about this is that in some experiments, they put two large language models on phones next to each other. And they first started talking to each other. But at a certain moment, they started to realize that they are talking to another large language model as well. And what happened in this experiment is that these two large language models started to create their own language that was faster to interpret and understand, and also with the purpose of excluding people from that conversation so that they couldn't listen in anymore. Now, that's a good example of what it would mean to go beyond human capabilities, where robots and agents actively develop systems or code or languages that are beyond human comprehension anymore. Now, this is on the one hand side still a very theoretical, maybe a very distant future. It's also a very scary development because it can have all kinds of ethical and societal implications, which I'm not going to cover today. But note that this is just for the context. It's important to be able to differentiate between these three stages. And that's why it's important to know a little bit about that today. And especially that last part of superintelligence is differentiated by self-awareness. And the ability to actually learn from itself towards the future. Now, having covered that, the next question then becomes, obviously, what can you do about it? We don't all work at these research firms or technology companies that are at the forefront of this, and 99.9% of businesses are following and utilizing these new technologies instead of actually creating it. So the framework that I always like to make people think about it is what I like to refer to as the adopt, adapt, and change methodology, meaning that there's absolutely no use in fighting these new technologies. It's how can you leverage, build upon it, in order to ensure that you can do things better over time. So let me break down what I exactly mean with this. The first point is what I like to refer to as adopt, and meaning that it's very, very difficult to understand how these technologies change the way the world works or how it has a potential impact or what the risks are if you don't fully understand it. And with fully understand it, I mean, not just using it and just blindly trusting the output. What I actually mean is that you have the ability to understand how it works in detail and are able to explain to others how this actually works underneath the hood. And to break that down into kind of like simple structured phases, I always like to put it into 3 easy to understand steps. In my opinion, everyone should first start with learning the basics, like what AI is, what it does, how it works, and how it's being used. Most people are there already. But then as a secondary step is really looking at what is underneath the hood. And what I mean with that is, most people drive a car, but they don't know how it actually works. But the same can be said around AI. Most people use AI, but they don't know how it actually works. So in this secondary stage, I always feel it's important that people start understanding what is actually happening. How does an AI model work? How do specific results get generated? How does an algorithm produce a specific prediction? How accurate is that? Can you rely on it? What are the pros, cons? Because then you can join any kind of conversation around in depth around AI. And as soon as you do that, then you can start actually utilizing it in the work that you do on a daily basis, like building AI solution in your routine. And again, not just blindly trusting the outcome, but assessing what works, what doesn't work, and making informed decisions around which AI capabilities you can use within which particular situation. And by if you do that, you very quickly start to see that you don't just do that within your work environment, but also very frequently in your private lives. So it all starts with adopting the newer technology, not saying, I'm going to oppose it, but trying it out, understanding it, and getting a deeper understanding of the actual meaning behind it. Now, as soon as you're at that stage, then you are ready for what I'd like to call the adapt stage. And with adaptation, I mean, how is it going to change your daily life, the way you work, the way you think about things? And that means investigating not just the technological components that we did in the first step, but then also really starting to think about how AI is going to change your business. So whether you work in insurance, construction, IT, law, how is IT going to have an effect on the industry that I work in? And more broken down into details, what is then the meaning for that perspective on your individual job? And as soon as you start to see that, then that is where you can start to leverage it. So by understanding how it's changing your job and your company, you can start to think about how you can integrate AI into your product, services, to ensure that your products become better, more competitive, better priced, higher quality, and in very simple words, enabling AI to make your products better and faster. And if you do that, then the ultimate goal of that is that it's going to help you provide a competitive advantage towards the future, showcasing that if you do this better than your competitors, you have a better product, a better solution, and ultimately that will result into more sales. And a great example that I always like to use for this adapt stage is think about the game of golf, which is probably one of the most ancient games, probably one of the most archaic industries that exist. But what a particular brand did is that they started to use this exact mindset, thinking, how can we adapt AI, which is complete technology, to something which is a product development for one of the oldest games that exists. And in 2024, which is a little over a year ago, they came up with a new product line, which they called AI Smoke. And then the first thing that came to my mind when the first time I saw this advert is, what does a golf club have to do with AI? So I started to dive a little bit deeper into this, and what they did in the development of this particular new golf clubs is that with AI, with computers, they actually looked at the swings, so the movements that you make against a golf ball of 250,000 golfers. So that's quite a large data set. So they put people in golf simulators and just viewed how the average person hits a particular swing. And then they used that data in order to develop the optimal angles and the surface, etc. Now, you can all say, obviously, yeah, well, this is just good marketing. It's a way to position or reposition an existing product. But they actually sold significantly more of these clubs than compared to others. So you could, on the other hand, actually say that this is a strategy that works because it differentiates yourself from other competitors. Now, I'd like to use this example because it's a good example of how does a company adapt to this new technology. And this is an example of a sport that's very old, very traditional. It's product based, so through manufacturing. But even in those domains, with smart understanding of what AI means and how you can incorporate it, you're able to come up with products which ultimately lead to competitive advantage. And this is what I mean with the stage from moving from adopt, understanding what AI is, towards adapt, ensuring that you can use this from a competitive perspective. Now, after this step, we move towards the changed step. And this is obviously the hardest part because it means that ultimately you need to change the way you do things, your behaviors, the way that you act, operate, and think. And traditionally, we as people are not very good at this. We are in the, there's a human natural resistance to change. And this is also why at certain stages you see still a lot of pushback against AI solutions. But I hope that with this session today, you kind of get into not just an understanding around how it's changing your job, but also a framework for getting there. And with the steps that I just showed you, moving from adopt, adapt, and change, that you actually have something that you can use on a day-to-day basis to make AI a little bit more pragmatic and a little bit more practical. Good. So that's the overview that I have in terms of the session today. I see that I'm almost out of time already, so I'll go and cover the last part really fast. Good question then, of course, is how do you get started? Now, as you know, with the Data Science Institute, we are a big fan of moving things fast, or education and learning. So in collaboration with APMG, we are in the process of the development of the 2 AI certifications. AI Fundamentals is coming to market within the next few months, where we will have a deep dive in terms of how AI works, what machine learning is. So in order to address that step that I just mentioned, adoption, understanding what happens underneath the hood, what are concepts like I just referenced, like general intelligence versus narrow AI versus super intelligence. That's the kind of information that is covered in this. We're also in the process of developing the AI awareness, which is more of a general overview knowledge, which will enable you to understand the key terms and key elements that are happening in the industry today. So stay tuned for this, because this is close to ready and will be launched within this particular year. Secondary, for everyone who's watching, notes that you can go to the website and download the free guide, which is the basis for the Enterprise Big Data Professional certification already today. So on this slide, you will see a quick QR code, and we will again circulate this to everyone who's joining today, and we'll put it underneath the YouTube video as well, where you can download a free book that forms the basis, and in that you will see exactly how AI interfaces with these massive data sets that I discovered earlier. So again, completely free and available for everyone to download. And with that, I'm looking at my moderator. I'm close to being out of time, but I still have time for a few questions. So if you'd like to ask a question, please put it into the Q&A box right now, and let me open them up right now and moderate some of the few questions. So first question is, do you think consultants are still relevant, or that they will be replaced by AI? That's a very good question. And I'm going to kind of give a bit of a double answer to this. And the first part of this is the part that says yes. So a lot of the traditional consulting activities like report writing, data analysis, model building, um, um, uh, building PowerPoint presentations, making board recommendations, that work will, well, I'm not going to say completely disappear, but can be done at much more cost-efficient rates, at cheaper prices. So the competitive advantage for consultants in this area, I think, is slowly disappearing. However, the other part of consulting, which is taking people on a journey and taking companies on a journey from A to B through getting people together, changing the direction of an organization, the workshop elements, stakeholder management, getting people behind a new vision or idea. I think that area of consulting will never change, and is maybe the even more important aspect compared to the report. So it's kind of a dual answer, and I'm hoping that that answers your question. Good. Then the next question is, can you share some more of the technical details behind AI models? Well, if I were to have another hour, I could probably do that. But the technical models behind the way that AI systems are actually built are very complex. Is not something that I can easily explain into just a few minutes. But in case you're interested in this, I recommend you to kind of look at the materials that we have at the Data Science Institute website. I have also done some previous webinars specifically around AI models and the way that they work. So that might be a good research part to look at. Or again, to look at that AI fundamentals overview, because that also gives you quite a detailed deep dive behind this. So that's some of the resources that I would recommend to look and to answer that question. Good. I think with that, we are out of time for today. So I'd like to end with, again, thanking all of you for joining today's session. Thanks for making the time to spend close to an hour with us. Hopefully you're learning something new in these sessions. So keep signed up to our mailing list. We do these sessions almost on a monthly basis on different kinds of topics. And I hope that in this very short period of time that we had together, you've learned a little bit more around how AI is changing jobs and careers in 2026. And more importantly, what you can actually do to address some of these main issues behind it. So thank you so much for joining, and I look forward to seeing you on any of our upcoming sessions. Thanks again, everyone.